Sorry.
Not a problem. All right, so thank you for joining us today. I'd like to introduce our guest. This is Jocelyn Paulsgrove from Northland, Kansas City, Missouri with Bras Thermography. And this offers a safe, easy, pain-free complement to mammography, but I would like to let her kind of get into the more details of the benefits of this. So right now, I'd just kind of like to introduce you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you kind of came along this path of working with this?
Sure. So my husband and I got married very young. We were in our very early 20s, and he had a significant illness that caused him to eventually lose his colon. He had ulcerative colitis. And after that event happened in our lives, we were shocked and kind of horrified at how the medical community treated an illness that was that severe. The little information we were given on how to deal with ulcerative colitis. And so we started searching for ways to help him specifically get better and deal with how he was going to have to live for the rest of his life. And I honestly we just threw ourselves into researching natural medicine, natural cures. And every time we met a new doctor, we found a new tool to use in that search. And so we eventually were led down the path of thermography. It was one of the last things I discovered, but I really wish it would have been the first thing I discovered, because it would have actually guided our path to wellness a lot. It would be a much easier journey using thermography, I guess, is how I would put it. So it's just been a long road of researching and looking for ways to deal with medical problems, medical issues in a more natural way.
Excellent. I love that. And it's unfortunate about the circumstances involved with your husband. And that's often the case with people, is they don't really get any answers until they start looking themselves and take it upon themselves to kind of take their own health into their own hands. And ultimately, that's kind of a big misguided information. We're not really told that today. And that's where one of the beneficial tools of this thermography is very essential for people to understand and know that there's much safer alternative therapies and tools out there available.
Right.
So would you mind kind of explaining the difference between maybe traditional thermography or traditional mammography as we know it?
I'd be happy to. Mammography is a diagnostic tool. That is what it is. It's a diagnostic test to find structural issues in your breast. It's looking specifically for tumors. If you have a lump that you feel and you are concerned about what it is, the best way to know what it is to go in and get a mammogram. It will show the structure of that lump. However, before you ever develop a lump or a tumor in any way, you're going to have changes that are happening inside your breast up to 8 years before you could find that lump. And so if you use a tool like thermography, it is a truly preventative screening tool. It looks for inflammation and dysfunction in your body, and it shows you the areas where things are starting to happen, so you can potentially prevent the tumor from growing. It shows the lymphatic system specifically, lymph nodes, where they're blocked, and that's a big deal for breast cancer. When you have blocked lymphatic channels, especially in your armpits or in your breast tissue, they remove those. When you have cancer, they remove lymph nodes because that's where it travels. So mammography is great for a structural problem. If we find something in your thermography that looks super scary, they're going to send you to get it diagnosed. And it's usually, I like to send people to get ultrasounds because I think they're safer and just more effective. But the difference between my tool and mammography or ultrasound is mine shows physiology and function, and mammography shows structure and, the actual tumor itself when it's there, when it's present.
So how about does thermography work? Does it use radiation?
No, it does not use any radiation. The camera is actually right here behind me. It's a small camera, and it sits away from your body. So you take an image just like you would a picture, and it shows any of the inflammatory patterns happening in your body. It's a heat-seeking test, so it's looking for thermal patterns, and it does not use radiation. If you have breast implants, if you have dense breast tissue, if you have, some people ask me if they have like a defibrillator, can they use it? And you can have anything inside your body you want. It's actually just a heat-seeking test. So it's not.
Much safer. So just looking at heat patterns and not using any of that dangerous radiation that's associated with the mammography.
Right.
That's a big plus.
And
I do know. Go ahead.
Sorry. The compression with mammography is another problem. People who have breast implants, people who do have possibly a breast tumor, when you compress that, it's kind of scary. If it's encapsulated tumor, you don't want to break that capsule. So
that's a great point. Yeah, you do want it to stay as local as possible. Yeah. Right. So great point. And I do know just from some of the literature I've read, UCLA, which is UCLA Johnson Cancer Comprehensive Center, stated that radiation actually will make cancer 30 times more malignant. And so that's something that's, again, not told to the public, and it should be really thought out. You should really think out your steps you're doing if you suspect some kind of suspicious lump or anything else, and maybe use thermography as a much safer approach first. Now with thermography, is it, and I know we kind of visited about this previously, but is it exclusively for the breast?
No, that's what I was going to tell you. When you were talking, it was just making me think of, there are so many, the lymph nodes in the body go all throughout. So if you have, specifically if your lymphatic is plugged up and you want to know where, there are large lymphatic drains in your groin, behind the backs of your knees, and in your ankles and your hands. You can look for patterns of dysfunction anywhere in the body. It also is great for looking at liver function, thyroid function, function of the kidneys, spleen, bowels. It's used in wherever I scan, they're going to give you a thermographic interpretation of what they see inside your body.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So much more round approach for looking at things, and maybe even inside the head too, lymphatics. I know the textbooks from years ago have actually changed. Now they've discovered this whole lymphatic system within the brain system. You look at anatomy and physiology books, maybe, a decade old, they'll show the lymphatics kind of stop right here in the neck.
Right.
And I know that it's actually a full complex system within the brain. And it's very good to know that we can actually scan, look at the brain, and look at the heat waves inside of what's going on without exposing any unnecessary radiation.
The other thing that it's great for is teeth. A lot of people don't think about their dental health when it comes to their breast health or the health of their body. But something we learned in the studies about my husband and his colitis is root canal teeth are very prone to have infection that is below the surface. You wouldn't know it because the tooth itself in your mouth is dead, so you don't feel pain, and it's usually not bothering you. But for him, he had a root of his tooth that was traveling all the way down into his body, and it still had staph infection kind of draining down into his body canal. We could see it very clearly on thermography. So he had that root canal tooth pulled, and we cleaned up his infection. But we would not have known that if we hadn't seen it on his thermogram.
That's amazing. Outstanding to hear that kind of stuff. Now, you mentioned you might not even know that you might have something going on and completely be unaware of it. Does thermography have benefits on detecting things earlier than perhaps mammography would?
Yes, 8 years. There's a case study that we go over usually yearly in all of our training. They always bring this case study back up. There was a woman that came in for thermography. She was a healthy 38-year-old patient, and her first thermogram said something showed that she was at some risk for developing something going on in her left breast. And she was asked to come back for the routine 90-day follow-up. Whenever we're scanning your breast, you do a baseline reading. So you do the first scan, and then 90 days later, you do another scan. And if those two images match and you don't have rapid change that has been seen, that's considered your normal pattern. There is no normal pattern that they can compare you to some normal model. You have to compare you to yourself. And so that would be her normal pattern if at 90 days there's no change. Well, at 90 days in this patient's study, there was rapid change. And they said, something's going on. We think you should go in for a mammogram, or a further testing is what they said. So she went into her doctor. They did a breast exam on her and they said, there's nothing in your breast. You're fine. Go home. And so they sent her home. At 6 months, our doctor said, well, I think you should scan her every 3 months still to keep checking. And at 6 months, she came back and there was even more rapid change. And they said, hey, this patient has to get a mammogram at this point. Something is really wrong. They sent her for a mammogram and it came back completely clear that there was nothing wrong with her. And so on the 9-month check, they said, run, don't walk. We know there's something wrong in your breast and you have to fight to figure out what it is. Again, she was sent away. So at 12 months, she was back for her yearly scan, and it was very, very clear on her thermogram. And so she took it with her to her doctors and said, this is showing up. You're not giving me any answers. So they went ahead and did a biopsy in that location. Somebody somewhere agreed to do a biopsy on her, and they found a 1 millimeter tumor that was cancerous. They took it out. They didn't have to take any lymph nodes. They didn't have to do chemo, radiation, nothing. They were able to remove that tiny little 1 millimeter tumor, and she was saved from the normal cancer protocol, which is mastectomy or whatever, chemo, radiation. And so, but that tumor, even when they found it at 1 millimeter, it would have taken another 7 years for mammogram to see that. They could not see it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, that story in itself really drives the importance of having maybe routine thermography to see if there's something underlying the surface, because, people can have inflammation going on inside their body that's perhaps undetectable.
And you don't feel it. It's not painful.
Yeah, and you don't feel it, and it's not painful, but it's, again, what one of my friends and one of my fellow doctors kind of talked about was this lava below the surface is kind of boiling up and you never really know about it. And who's to know that if she would have never had this done, if she would have never even went in for a routine scan until it was way too late. And
right.
Then of course, and way too late for even getting it removed, or perhaps even getting into the lymphatics and spreading. And we all know that once it gets in the lymphatics and starts to spread, that's where the real problems come about.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why I talk so much to my patients whenever I see them. The recommendations I almost always make is you need routine chiropractic care, you need acupuncture, and you need routine lymphatic massage. And I think lymphatic massage, of all of those, that's the number one that I tell my patients, because when your lymphatics get trapped, especially in your breast tissue, bad things are going to start happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's many reasons for that, especially living in such a toxic world today.
Yes.
The most common quadrant in a woman's breast to have, any kind of lumps or tumors or anything like that starts to grow is like the upper outer quadrant. And that's directly linked to their armpit for using perhaps toxic deodorant, things like that. So
it's also linked to an underwire bra. That's where the end of your wire on your underwire sits, right there in your armpit. And that, I would say, that has been studied several times with thermography. For different companies actually have contacted me. A lady contacted me from a bra company, and she said, we actually use thermograms in our marketing for our bras because we don't have underwires. And so we take a thermogram image of someone who's worn an underwire their entire adult life. And 6 months later, after wearing our product, we take another thermogram of them. And it's very interesting to see how differently they look after that scan. And I said, yeah, I see it every day. People will come back for their 90-day scan and I'll say, dry brush and get rid of your underwire bra. And it's amazing the change just that small thing can make. It's to take off your underwire.
Wow, that's incredible. I wasn't even aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's good for our listeners to know. Try to avoid those underwire bras at all cost. I wonder what the underlying mechanism is. Probably has something to do with maybe EMF even more, because we're starting to heavily be exposed to 5G and things like that. And I definitely see a variety of issues and challenges with that, especially as it's getting worse and worse. So,
EMFs that's a big deal. And just the compression aspect of that's, like you said, that's where all the lymphatics are under your armpit. When you compress those, they can't drain. So, and the breast tissue itself gets a lot weaker when you're wearing a bra 24/7. Like we've always been told as young kids, if you don't want saggy breasts, you must wear a bra every day, keep them pushed up in the position they're supposed to be in. But in fact, if you do that, it's like any other tissue. It'd be like keeping your arm in a sling 24 hours a day. You're going to lose that definition, that muscle, that tissue is going to break down from not being used. So if you allow them to sit in their normal position, they'll stay in place and they'll drain a lot better. So they look better and feel better, healthy.
Yeah. Probably has a lot to do with compromising the circulation if it's compressed like that. That makes me think maybe even sports bras are even more dangerous, right?
They are. And that's what people will say, well, I wear sports bras all day long. Yeah, if it's really loose, that would be fine. But the more compression you have in that upper body area, the worse off you are.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me just think that all sports bras potentially can be dangerous because I don't know of any that are loose. You know what I mean? That's kind of what the whole purpose is.
It would be a sizing issue. It would be, you just have to buy the next size up, I guess.
Or maybe 2 or 3 after hearing this information.
Yeah.
So it's like wearing an extra large t-shirt or something.
Yep. Whatever's socially appropriate. How's that?
Yeah.
I tell people, I'm like, at your house, the first thing you should do, take your bra off. If you have to go out in public, you have to go to work. I understand we have to all be, as modest as we can and socially appropriate at your job. But really, I mean, you get in the car, unhook the back of it. Don't wear an underwire, but if you have to wear a bra in general, just unhook it when you're in the car.
Yeah, and the minute you get home, get comfortable and wear a t-shirt, whatever it needs to be to let them be in their natural form so they can have the right circulation and everything else. And I think for our listeners, it's really important to emphasize movement because that's what really will get lymphatics moving. I think people should be active, and I don't mean necessarily strenuous exercise, but at least walking, swinging the arms, making sure that they are fully moving because skeletal muscle and the skeletal muscle itself flexing is really important for moving that lymphatic pump.
Right. We recommend people jump on a miniature rebounding trampoline. Even 30 seconds to a minute will move a ton of lymphatic fluid. And when I tell women this, they're like, hey, you tell me not to wear a bra and then you're telling me to jump on a trampoline. This is going to be an issue. And I'm saying, well, do it in the privacy of your own bedroom and don't worry about it because that's what you have to do. You have to let them move. You have to let everything flow.
You have to let everything flow. Exactly. And I think as far as exercises go, I don't think anything beats a rebounder. I think it's just all around. It even puts a 2G force up to even more, like a 2.5G force on all your body. I mean, my family uses rebounders. Yeah. And they will actually strengthen your bones, strengthen everything. And again, great for lymphatic drainage and ensuring that there's no clogging and stuff like that.
In my spare time, what little I have, I coach gymnastics for my daughter, and I was coaching a preschool class, and the first thing the preschoolers always want to jump on the trampolines. That's their favorite thing to do. And the second those preschoolers hit that trampoline, their noses start pouring snot out of their noses. And the parents will always come up to me and say, I promise you my child's not sick. I'm so sorry I brought them here, but they're really not sick. And I always say to them, your child's not sick. Your child is draining. This is the force of the trampoline is making their lymphatics drain and it's coming out their nose. And it's so obvious to see, people don't understand what a trampoline will do for you. And it's I thought it was funny. Every time a kid jumped on it and their nose ran, their parent was freaking out. But I'm thinking that's what it's supposed to do for you. And it'll do it for you too if you get on the trampoline.
Yeah. And that's a good point. I mean, a lot of people have this knee-jerk reflex to get mammographies done yearly. And I have seen literature stating that those are absolutely unnecessary, that early detection isn't accurate at all.
I guess I'm trying to figure out on early detection, for me, mammography is specifically looking for structure of a tumor. They're looking for a breast cancer that is there, but they're not looking at all about for the soft tissue, the patterns in the soft tissue that are developing, I don't understand why they call it a diagnostic test or a screening tool, that they say women should get screened every year with mammography. All that will tell them is, are they already sick? That's not a screening. It's, I don't know.
I've seen medical literature written in journals, and I can actually give you the source. I don't recall it right now, but it does say that women should avoid all yearly screening, and just in case, because it's been shown that actually there can be a lot more harm with that yearly radiation. And then I've seen some really surprising studies that people don't, this is really hidden. The Lancet, which is the most prestige journal in the world, says that a Swedish mammography group examined 650,000 women, 650,000 women for 5 years. And it was like 1989 to like 94 or 95, 650,000 women. All of them had on-screen detected tumors on their breast, and nobody's ever left them alone. That's the problem with this country. The minute there's something detected, we want to poke it, cut it, prod it, scan it, scrape it, whatever it is, instead of leaving it alone. And this Swedish mammography group actually just sat back and observed these women for about 5-6 years. They all disappeared.
Yeah.
That was absolutely stunning. And that comes right out of the Lancet, which is, again, the most prestige journal in the world. So,
yeah. The person who taught me about thermography, the lady who does my thermography, was talking about people who have fibroids, like fibrous breast tissue and a fibroid that they can feel. She has developed some breast exercises that you can do that are very simple massage type exercises. And if you couple that with certain oils or magnesium lotion and massage daily, you can move many of those fibroids that are stuck in your breast tissue will disappear. They will go away. And that's the thing, is mammography doesn't know the difference between a fibroid and a cancerous tumor. They have to do a biopsy to figure that out. So potentially what they thought was a breast tumor could have been a fibroid that did disappear on its own. And we have massages and tools to help people deal with that.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Now, I see your camera in the background. Do you want to cover any kind of details about it, or kind of just give a quick description of how it works for some of our listeners?
It is the most unassuming looking piece of equipment you will ever see. This is literally, the lens of it is right here. And it's just a heat-seeking camera. There's not much weight to it. It's very small. Honestly, the lady who trained me in thermography, she also has three businesses: people thermography, horse thermography, and exotic zoo animal thermography. And when I got this camera, I was really, I want to bubble wrap it, take it everywhere whenever I travel. And she goes, "Oh man, this camera is state-of-the-art equipment, but it's very, very durable. My horse kicked it across the field and it's still fine." So she's like, "Don't worry about it, it'll be fine." But honestly, it's a medical grade camera. They use it in surgeries where they're placing stents in your veins. So it's the same type of camera that would be in the OR during vein surgeries. It's a medical grade 1 device. So it's actually
very cool. Very cool. Now, are there any drawbacks to thermography that you're aware of?
I would not call them drawbacks. I think people just need to know its limitations. It's not a diagnostic tool. I can't screen you and say you have ductal carcinoma and this is what stage you are. It's not a diagnostic tool. It's definitely just a screening tool. It's going to look for patterns of inflammation, areas of dysfunction. And after that, when they identify them, you have to take steps further if you need a diagnosis, you have to go get that.
Yeah. So it's not a diagnosis, and really, essentially, if we're just going to get down to, truth versus propaganda, diagnosis really don't mean anything, because once you're diagnosed, then they look for a cure, and you're on, simple protocols that, again, from the literature, are very, very poor outcomes. So.
Well, and with my husband, we were given the diagnosis of ulcerative colitis. That absolutely did not help us one bit. To have a name for something didn't tell us, how do you deal with it? What's the best thing to do health-wise? what should you eat? What should you do? What should you take? What should you avoid? We didn't get any of that information. We got a 3-leaf pamphlet saying, one day you may have colon cancer, but until then, if you take these pills, you'll be fine. And that it wasn't very helpful. The diagnosis itself wasn't helpful. We just needed a plan of action. So
yeah.
That's kind of what I try to give people. I look at their screening. I see the medical interpretation when it comes back from the doctors. All of my interpretations are done by board certified MDs, radiologists. Most of them have been mammography radiologists in the past. But it's all written by medical doctors. They tell you the medical correlation that they see. And they recommend that if you have something in your carotid artery, you go get an ultrasound to make sure that it's not closing. They look at your thyroid, and if they say it's underfunctioning or overfunctioning based on the heat pattern, if you want to get blood work done, you should go to get that done. They can't tell you not to. They have to recommend the medical tests that go along with what they see in your thermogram. And then you can choose if you want to go down the natural route or if you want to go to the medical doctor.
Yeah. And the natural route, again, is going to look at maybe courses of action to take to reverse that, to give you action steps on how to maybe prevent that versus, I'm assuming the pills that your husband was given, and again, it was a stealth infection causing colitis, which is very, very common with these digestive disorders. And again, I imagine those pills probably were immunosuppressants, right?
Yes. Yes, they were. And prednisone, high doses of prednisone to try to throw him into remission. Didn't work, but.
Well, I'm glad he's doing better today.
Much better.
It was great talking with you guys when you're in my office.
Yes.
Is there anything else you can tell us? What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
I have a Facebook page, Bras Thermography Northland, and that has all of my information on it. My address is 5140 Northeast Antioch Road in Kansas City, Missouri. And my cell phone number is on my Facebook page. So that is my actual personal cell phone that I have sitting here in front of me every day. You can text me or call me, or you can message me on Facebook.
Awesome. I will ask, because maybe some of our listeners might be curious about this. Is thermography covered by insurance at all?
No. I get that question all the time. It is not, because it is not a diagnostic tool. It is a screening tool, so they do not cover it. However, if you have a health savings account, we pay into a health savings account. It's pre-tax money that we pay into an account. I can use that on anything, chiropractic, acupuncture, and I use it for thermography. And sometimes I can get massage covered. It's been a little more difficult lately, but a health savings account will cover this. And if someone has financial need and they want to reach out to me, there is a grant from UnitedBreastCancerFoundation.org. They cover up to $150 depending on your financial need. $150 a year for your screening. It doesn't matter if you're getting a breast-only screening or if you're getting a full-body screening. They will pay that money regardless. And they will also pay for the first year. They'll pay for the follow-up as well, the 90-day follow-up. So I've had quite a few women have used the UBCF grant successfully.
Very good. Yeah. And I do want to emphasize to maybe any listeners that things that are covered by insurance don't necessarily mean it's watching out for your health. And in my experience, oftentimes the people that have the best insurance that money can buy are oftentimes the sickest. So it comes down to how important your health is to you, what kind of steps you want to take and take charge in your own health. And, pay cash. I mean, that's what's going to get you the best answers, the truth. And ultimately, your health is under attack every day. It's up to you to protect it. So. Agree. Well, Jocelyn, this has been very good. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to share this. Again, I really appreciate the information. I will keep in touch with you. I've got a number of people that I'd like to send your way and just get some baseline going and kind of go from there. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure. You enjoy the rest of your day. Okay. Thank you. I will. We'll talk soon. Thanks.